Alrighty, we are back with another weekly recap. This time it is the first week of November. Um, so yeah, new month we're into here. We just delivered the first week of price action, um, and I'd say it was a pretty clean one overall. Like, yeah. Let me just revert whatever I just swiped there. So this is the monthly chart. Just to zoom out real quick. Mm, so what happened this week or this part of this month, right? This is essentially the weekly candle, since that's all that the month has so far. We purged August's monthly swing high. So we purged a pretty high time frame buy side pool that we've kind of been aiming for a while, right? Ever since essentially we purged this and we had this initial reaction here, I've kind of been looking for this buy side as a target. So we hit that last week, earlier in the week, and then we have a nice initial reaction away from it. I'm gonna get rid of this and this gap just for a cleaner chart, and then draw out this new fair value gap that we just formed, right? So this is kind of what the chart is looking like now. This is like higher time frame sell side. Once again, I'm just gonna clear this off the chart for now, just to have like a clean chart. Yeah. So this is what we're looking at on dollar. Yeah, let's drop down to the daily chart just to get a closer look. So going into the week, we had that push from here higher, and then starting the week, we essentially just continued that move higher into the buy side, swept the buy side, and then dipped lower into this, I believe, yes, discount bullish fair value gap here. So that's where we're trading right now. Also with that weekly gap that I did mention, as bullish PD arrays that we are trading in now. So I mean, yeah, not the craziest of weeks, right? We just ran a high time frame sell side pool and then retraced off it. It's pretty simple, right? With that, majors are kind of in tandem with what's going on there, and we have a curious development because last week I'm pretty sure I must have mentioned in the outlook that we are looking potentially for GU to have found its terminus of the bearish move. Because if we drop over to GU and we go to the monthly chart, we can see that we have now reached down into this monthly fair value gap right here, right? We had that bearish SMT at the highs with EU that kind of like started this sell-off. Well, it didn't start, but we saw a sell-off from there then afterwards, and we had these equal lows that are kind of right at the high of the monthly gap, or essentially are the high of the monthly gap as our target for that sell-off. So last week when we did hit them, I was saying like, if we're gonna see a reversal, this is the level I'd want to see it from. And so far, right, like, yeah, that's a nice candle there for that idea. And then dropping down to the daily chart, we can also see the first signs of that in the sense that when we drop down here in sync with Dixie's push higher, right, we dig down deeper. And then eventually when we get that bullish move, we actually inverse a daily bearish gap. So we start disrespecting daily FEGs. And then yesterday we wicked down into that daily gap one more time, and we have sensitivity there at that price point and get another continued push higher. So that is something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to get rid of some of the drawings up here just because they're so long ago that honestly I don't really see their relevance at the moment anymore. So yeah, this is kind of what we can see potentially on the daily gap going into the next week. And then also we see here with Euro, we have a huge SMT where like, I mean, it's even bigger than what I have marked out there, to be fair, right? Because it, like this low down here is all the way over here. Is that gonna update? All right, monthly SMT. just to note how kind of big that SMT could be, right? Obviously, if we end up getting more bearish movement, that SMT might get wiped, but at the moment, I do very much think that we're looking good for this to kind of stick around, potentially. But that's more of an outlook thing. So anyway, overall, I mean, the week, like, there weren't any trades on EU or GU. Like, the only thing you could have been looking for is a continuation from this daily bearish gap, which I wouldn't really want to look for based on like what I just explained about my bias kind of being that potentially this could be a point of reversal, or at least a point of a healthy retracement higher. So yeah, but also at the same time, if there would have been a setup, I would have taken it. There was not a setup, so here we are. Yeah, with no trades on majors. Moving on, we have indices. Now, indices had a very bearish week, digging down pretty deep into this daily gap here, and then ending up actually still though closing inside it on NQ, and on ES we closed just below it. Now, if we want to look at ES from the perspective of the fair value gap being drawn to the volume imbalance here, then obviously we're still very much fine there. I guess interesting thing to note here would be YM, and we have weekly SMT. And I think weekly SMT is definitely more, I don't know if you can hear it in the back, someone's probably drilling something or some shit. I don't know if that's picking up, but that'd be a little annoying because it's hella loud. Anyway, what I'm saying is weekly SMT with YM I think is pretty substantial, just because like if we do look on the weekly chart, like we've been pretty in sync, right? So it's not like sometimes we're like on the lower time frames, YM is just doing like the polar opposite of whatever NQ and ES are doing, to where like the SMT doesn't seem so crazy because there's like a SMT at like every single high and low with YM. Yeah, on the weekly chart, that's not really the case because it's been pretty in sync. So anyway, dropping down into this, we can see that essentially Monday we consolidate, Tuesday we push lower, Wednesday we kind of fake like a reversal, quote unquote, right? So we have a little bit of a retracement higher, and then we form a daily bearish gap here, but we don't reach into it. But on Thursday we continue that momentum lower, and then Friday we get another push lower, and we end up sweeping out this daily sell side here, and then from there late on Friday, like in PM session Friday, we ended up getting some bullish movement from there, essentially pushing higher. So that's kind of what NQ did this week. NES, now we did have an entry on ES when we dug initially into this daily gap, into this weekly gap. We had a SMT with YM here. We have inside the weekly gap, we have bearish order block, then we have close above. So this was that quote unquote fake retracement, which did end up giving a valid setup for my model. So cooked on that. But also looking at this from the perspective of a potential move next week, right? Since we did close inside that weekly gap, that is something to think about as well, but that's more outlook than recap. So let's move on to gold and silver. And honestly, there's almost nothing to say here. Where did my mouse go? Am I tripping? No, my mouse. Okay, here it is. Jesus, just disappeared, or I'm blind. Anyway, this is the weekly chart for gold. We can see last week when we dig down into that weekly fair value gap here. And then this week, we just essentially consolidate. That's really all there is to it, right? Inside week. And then silver. We're looking just a tad more bullish, even though we don't end up having a bullish body while gold does. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of just tell if you like throw these up side by side, like silver does look like it's a little more bullish, which also is confirmed by the lower time frames, right? If we drop down here to the 4-hour chart, where silver is kind of working its way up from that order block, and then gold, on the other hand, is consolidating inside of the order block. So overall on silver and gold, like we did have a daily gap here, but no setup from that either. Yeah, I mean, pull up the daily chart and we can see very clearly this is a consolidation. Which makes sense, right? We had a huge bullish move, then we had a fat bearish retrace, and now we're just kind of consolidating to, yeah, just like fucking chill out a bit, essentially. So, I mean, on silver, this looks like it could be kind of like the idea of, okay, we have a weekly swing low put in, and we're there. Now we want to see that bullish candle. Gold, to my opinion, looks less like that, but in theory, it's also got that weekly swing low now. Overall, I think this is very low probability until we take out either side of the previous week, right, of this weekly candle here, because we have an inside candle and we have that on both on both silver and gold. But yeah, so overall just consolidated, essentially, is the memo there. And then even bonds we can pull up. Going into the week, I'd mentioned that I want to see this daily gap hold in tandem with that move on dollar. And going into the week, we just kind of consolidated, and then on Wednesday we got that push lower off that gap. So we did end up actually, I guess, completing that move as a continuation from the daily gap while dollar did push for the highs. So essentially what I did want to see. And then also interesting to note is when dollar then came off the gap and retraced lower, the bonds instantly after running the daily external down here pushed higher right back into the gap. So yeah, pretty much in sync with the overall narrative, what dollar was doing and stuff. So yeah, and I mean, bonds are always just like, to me, they're kind of like a small bonus to add in. It's not like I look at them too much, to be fair. But yeah, that was the week. And yeah, that's the recap. So fucking A, man.